Hi, I'm Sarah. Today I'm going to read you the story of Clara Matthews, which is titled like this. I invited my family to Thanksgiving, but no one showed up. No calls, no texts. Then, my sister posted a photo. Our whole close-knit family chose my dinner, so I flew away on vacation, shared my photos, and my phone exploded with calls. My name is Clara Matthews. I'm 30 years old, and I've always been the adopted daughter trying to prove I belong in my own family. Don't get me wrong, I love my parents, Bob and Linda, my older sister Rachel, and my older brother Michael. But sometimes I feel like I'm watching their lives through a window, pressing my face against the glass of a family portrait I was photoshopped into. I was adopted from Vietnam when I was 6 months old. Bob and Linda Matthews of Denver, Colorado, couldn't have more children after Rachel, so they flew halfway around the world to bring me home. They've always told me I was chosen, that I was special. But lately I've been wondering if being chosen means I have to keep earning my place at the table. Rachel is 35, married to David Johnson, a financial advisor with perfect teeth and a perfect 401k. They have 2 kids, Emma, who's 8, and takes dance lessons, and little Jake, who's 5 and plays soccer. Rachel works as a marketing director and has mastered the art of making everything look effortless on social media. Her house in Cherry Hills looks like it belongs in Better Homes and Gardens. Her kids are always dressed in coordinated outfits, and she throws these Pinterest-perfect parties that our extended family talks about for months. Michael, everyone calls him Mike, is 33, married to Jennifer, a part-time registered nurse. They have one daughter, Sophie, who's 6, and apparently gifted at everything she touches. Mike's a software engineer at one of Denver's tech startups, and they live in a craftsman bungalow in Park Hill that they renovated themselves. Jennifer is obsessed with organic everything and keeps their house so clean you could perform surgery on the kitchen counters. Then there's me, single, working as a graphic designer for a creative agency, downtown, living alone in a 3-bedroom house in Highlands that I bought 2 years ago with money I saved myself. No husband, no kids, no organic garden or Instagram-worthy holiday displays. Just me, my MacBook, and my Vietnamese coffee maker that I use every morning. A small rebellion my adoptive family has never quite understood. I'm not messy or irresponsible, but my family acts like I live in some kind of bohemian disaster zone. Every time they visit, which isn't often, Mom and Jennifer make these little comments about dust on my bookshelves or how I should invest in a proper dining set instead of the mix and match vintage pieces I've collected over the years. They don't understand that I like my eclectic style, that it feels more authentic than their matching everything. For the past 5 years, every holiday has followed the same script. Either we all gather at Mom and Dad's ranch-style house in Lakewood, or we go to Rachel's picture-perfect home, always one of those 2 options. When I've suggested hosting, they deflect with comments like, "Oh, Clara, you know how busy you get with work," or "Your place is so unique," but maybe not quite right for a family gathering. My place isn't small. I have a dining room that seats 8 people comfortably, but I think what they really mean is that it doesn't look like their idea of what an American family home should look like. But last month, I decided I was done being the perpetual guest in my own family. We were all at Mom and Dad's for our monthly Sunday dinner, a tradition that somehow became mandatory without anyone actually voting on it. Dad was carving the pot roast while Mom fussed around the kitchen in her apron that says, "World's Best Grandma." Rachel was showing everyone photos from Emma's latest dance recital on her phone, and Mike was explaining some new app his company was developing. I took a breath and said, "I want to host Thanksgiving this year." The room fell silent, like someone had hit the mute button on the TV. Mike's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Jennifer's eyebrows shot up toward her perfectly blown-out hair. Rachel looked at me like I'd just announced I was joining the circus. "That's sweet, honey," Mom said in that voice she uses when she thinks I'm being unrealistic. But Thanksgiving is a lot of work. It's not just cooking. It's about creating that warm family atmosphere that brings everyone together. "I can handle it," I said, feeling my cheeks warm. "I've been cooking for myself for years. I know how to make a turkey, And I want to use Grandma O'Brien's china set. That got their attention. Grandma Catherine O'Brien was Mom's mother, an Irish immigrant who'd passed down her precious Waterford china to me, specifically because I was the only grandchild who'd learned to cook from her before she died. The rest of the family had always been slightly uncomfortable with how close Grandma and I were, how she'd taught me her secret recipes, and told me stories about coming to America with nothing but hope and determination. Rachel laughed, not mean but not exactly supportive either. Clara, organizing a family holiday is more than just cooking a turkey and setting out china. There's planning, timing, making sure everything flows perfectly. It's about creating traditions and memories. Which is exactly why I'm asking now a month ahead, I said. I want to create something meaningful, something that honors both Grandma's traditions and maybe adds something new. I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking about the banh mi stuffing I'd been experimenting with, or the Vietnamese coffee creme brulee I'd perfected. Small ways to weave my heritage into our family traditions. Dad nodded slowly. If that's what you want to do, sweetheart. But he didn't sound excited. None of them did. They all sat there looking at each other like they were trying to telepathically coordinate a response. My holidays are always perfect, Rachel said, with this tiny smile that wasn't really a smile. I mean, I've just had so much practice. Clara, you've never really organized anything like this before. That stung more than it should have. That's because nobody ever lets me try. How am I supposed to get practice if I'm never given the chance? We're not stopping you, Mike said, but his tone suggested he thought this was like watching someone attempt brain surgery with a butter knife. Mom and Dad exchanged one of those married couple looks that somehow communicate entire conversations. I could practically hear them thinking, she's going to mess this up, but maybe she needs to learn the hard way. You know what? I said, feeling something hot and defiant rise in my chest. Maybe the reason I've never hosted is because everyone assumes I'll fail. Maybe if someone actually believed in me instead of treating me like the family charity case, things would be different. The table went dead quiet. Even Jake stopped playing with his toy car. Then Dad cleared his throat. You're right, Clara. It's your turn. We'll come to your house for Thanksgiving. Great, Rachel said, but she sounded like she was agreeing to attend a root canal. We'll be there, Mike nodded. Us too. Jennifer just smiled, that polite smile she gives when she doesn't want to say what she's really thinking, probably something about organic turkey and proper table settings. After that, the conversation shifted to safer topics, but I could feel the weird energy in the room, like they were all just humoring the adopted daughter's little fantasy. Like they expected me to call in a week and say, never mind, let's just do it at Rachel's house like always. But I wasn't going to do that. I was going to prove them wrong. I was going to throw the most meaningful Thanksgiving dinner our family had ever had. The next 3 weeks became my personal mission. I threw myself into planning this Thanksgiving with the kind of obsessive energy I usually reserved for major client projects at work. I spent hours researching recipes, reading food blogs, and watching every Thanksgiving tutorial I could find on YouTube. I made detailed shopping lists organized by store and timeline, fresh herbs, 2 days before turkey, 3 days before everything else a week ahead. But this wasn't just about proving I could cook. This was about creating something that honored both sides of who I am. I planned traditional dishes alongside subtle nods to my Vietnamese heritage. The stuffing would have banh mi bread mixed with cornbread. The sweet potato casserole would have a hint of coconut milk. Small rebellions that felt like coming home to myself. I had a cleaning service come on Wednesday. My house had never looked better. Every surface sparkled. Every corner was dust-free, and I could practically see my reflection in the hardwood floors. Mom and Jennifer would have nothing to complain about this time. But the centerpiece of everything was Grandma O'Brien's china. I spent an entire evening carefully washing each piece, remembering how she'd taught me to handle them when I was little. These plates have stories, Clara, she used to say. They came with me from County Cork when I was younger than you are now. Someday they'll tell your stories too. I'd planned the menu down to the last detail, incorporating everyone's favorites. For Rachel, her beloved sweet potato casserole with mini marshmallows. For Mike, that cranberry orange relish he always raved about. For Jennifer, pumpkin pie from scratch with real whipped cream. But I also included my Vietnamese coffee creme brulee and that experimental banh mi stuffing, small ways to weave my heritage into our family narrative. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I posted in our family WhatsApp group, "Looking forward to seeing everyone Thursday at 2 p.m. Can't wait to share this special day with my favorite people." Within an hour, everyone had reacted with heart emojis. Mom, Dad, Rachel, Mike, even Jennifer and David. I stared at those little digital hearts and felt this warm feeling spread through my chest. Maybe they were starting to see me differently. Maybe this was my chance to finally feel like I truly belonged. The night before Thanksgiving, I prepped everything I could. Chopped vegetables, made the cranberry relish, mixed up both stuffings. I set the table with Grandma's china and new cloth napkins, arranged the good silverware, and created a centerpiece with small pumpkins, fall leaves, and a single empty chair, a tradition I'd read about for honoring those who couldn't be with us. In this case, Grandma O'Brien, who'd believed in me when no one else did. I stood in my dining room at midnight looking at everything laid out perfectly and felt proud, really, truly proud. This was going to be more than amazing. This was going to be the Thanksgiving that proved I wasn't just the adopted afterthought. I was a Matthews who could create something beautiful and meaningful for our family. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to start the turkey. I'd calculated exactly when everything needed to go in the oven, so it would all be ready simultaneously. I had a timeline taped to my refrigerator that looked like a military operations schedule. I put on my favorite dress, the blue one Mom always says brings out my eyes, and did my hair and makeup carefully. If I was going to be the hostess, I wanted to look the part. By noon, the house smelled incredible. The turkey was golden brown and magazine-worthy. Both stuffings were perfectly seasoned, the sweet potato casserole had the right amount of marshmallow browning, and my Vietnamese coffee creme brulee had set beautifully in the refrigerator. Everything was going perfectly. At 1:30, I did a final check. Table set with Grandma's China food ready and warming house spotless, me looking good. I even lit some fall-scented candles to make everything extra cozy. 2:00 p.m. came and went. No doorbell, no cars pulling into my driveway. By 2:15, I started checking my phone obsessively. Maybe they were running late. Rachel was always running late because of the kids' schedules. 2:30. Still nothing. I started walking to the window every few minutes looking for familiar cars. The turkey was done and resting under foil. The side dishes were staying warm in the oven. Everything was ready and waiting, but the chairs around Grandma's china remained empty. 3:00. I called Mom's cell phone, straight to voicemail. "Hey Mom, just wondering if you guys are on your way. Hope everything's okay." My voice sounded smaller than I intended. I tried Dad. Voicemail. 3:15. Rachel's phone went straight to voicemail too. My hands were starting to shake. This was weird. Really weird. Even if there was some emergency, someone would have called or texted. We're a family that over-communicates about everything. Jennifer sends updates about Sophie's every sneeze. I called Mike. Voicemail. By 3:30, I was pacing around my kitchen like a caged animal. The beautiful food was getting cold despite my efforts to keep it warm. The carefully planned timeline was falling apart. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I started texting everyone. "Hey, are you guys okay?" Getting worried. No responses. Radio silence from my entire family. I changed out of my dress and put on jeans and a sweater, my hands shaking as I buttoned the cardigan. Maybe I should drive to Mom and Dad's house to make sure everyone was safe. Maybe there was some kind of family emergency, and they'd forgotten to include me in the communication chain. Wouldn't be the first time. But just as I was grabbing my car keys, my phone buzzed with a notification. Rachel had posted new photos on Instagram. My heart stopped. With trembling fingers, I opened the app. There they were. All of them. Mom, Dad, Mike, Jennifer, David, and all the kids sitting around Rachel's dining room table laughing and looking perfectly happy. The table was covered with food turkey stuffing all the traditional dishes. Everyone was dressed nicely, the kids were smiling, and there was even a thankful banner hanging in the background. The caption read, "Grateful for another perfect Thanksgiving with our whole close-knit family. Nothing beats tradition. Hashtag blessed. Family." Thanksgiving, June 24. I sat down hard on my couch staring at my phone screen. The shock hit me like a physical blow, followed immediately by this sick, hollow feeling in my stomach. They'd planned this. While I'd been cooking and cleaning and setting Grandma's china and worrying about whether the stuffing was seasoned correctly, they'd been planning to have Thanksgiving at Rachel's house. Without me, without even telling me. As I sat there staring at the Instagram post, pieces of a puzzle I'd been ignoring for years started clicking into place. The realization wasn't just about this Thanksgiving. It was about everything. I'd always noticed that my parents seemed more attentive to Rachel and Mike, but I'd told myself it was because they were older, or because they had kids, or because I was just being sensitive. But sitting there looking at that Instagram post, I started remembering all the little moments I'd pushed aside. When Rachel got promoted to marketing director 2 years ago, Mom and Dad threw her a celebration dinner at their house and invited all our aunts and uncles, even cousin Sarah, drove down from Fort Collins. When I got promoted to senior designer 6 months later, I got a congratulatory phone call that lasted maybe 3 minutes. When Mike and Jennifer bought their house in Park Hill, Mom and Dad showed up with champagne and spent the weekend helping them move furniture and hang pictures. When I bought my house, the biggest purchase of my life, Dad came over once to check the plumbing, made a comment about how I'd overpaid for the neighborhood, and left. Rachel's kids got elaborate birthday parties that Mom helped plan for weeks, complete with themed decorations and custom cakes from that expensive bakery in Cherry Creek. Mike's daughter Sophie got special grandmother-granddaughter shopping trips to Park Meadows Mall every month, coming home with bags from Justice and Build-A-Bear. My birthday. I got a card in the mail and maybe dinner at Olive Garden if it happened to fall on a weekend when everyone was free. But it was more than just the big occasions. It was the daily fabric of our family life. When Rachel called Mom crying about work stress, Mom would drop everything and drive over with wine and takeout from Rachel's favorite restaurant. When Mike's startup was going through a rough patch, Dad spent hours helping him update his resume, just in case. When I'd called Mom last year having a panic attack about a freelance client who was threatening to sue me over a design dispute, she'd said, "Oh honey, I'm sure it'll work out. You're so good at handling these things on your own." I'd convinced myself that they saw me as independent, capable, self-sufficient. But sitting there looking at that Instagram photo, I realized the truth. They saw me as someone who didn't need their love, because I wasn't really their daughter. I wasn't really their daughter. The thought hit me like a punch to the chest. I'd spent 29 years of my life trying to earn my place in this family, trying to be American enough, successful enough, good enough to deserve their love. But maybe the problem wasn't that I wasn't enough. Maybe the problem was that they'd never actually seen me as one of them. I didn't call them. I didn't drive over to Rachel's house demanding answers. I didn't send angry texts asking why they'd lied to me. Instead, I sat there for a long time staring at my phone, and then at my empty dining room with Grandma O'Brien's china reflecting the light from the chandelier. Eventually, I got up and started putting the food away. I saved enough turkey and sides for myself for a few days, then packed everything else into containers and grocery bags. All that beautiful food that I'd spent days preparing that nobody had bothered to come eat. I loaded everything into my car and drove to the Denver rescue mission downtown. The volunteers there were so grateful, talking about how many people they'd be able to feed with a real Thanksgiving meal, how much it meant that someone cared enough to bring homemade food instead of just writing a check. "This stuffing is incredible," one volunteer said, trying a bite. "Is that banh mi bread? That's genius. You should be a chef." At least someone appreciated what I'd created. At least someone could see the thought and love I'd put into every dish. When I got home, I cleaned up the kitchen, blew out the candles, and carefully packed away Grandma's china. Each piece felt heavier than usual, like it was absorbing all my disappointment. I kept thinking about what Grandma used to say about the plates telling stories. What story would they tell about today? The story of a granddaughter who'd tried to honor her memory and been abandoned by the family that was supposed to love her. I turned on Netflix and watched old movies until late, my phone staying completely silent all evening. Not one text, not one call, not even a happy Thanksgiving message from any of them. The silence felt louder than shouting. Friday morning, I woke up with this strange sense of clarity. I lay in bed for a while watching the Denver skyline through my bedroom window, and suddenly I knew exactly what I needed to do. I picked up my phone and called my boss, Jim Rodriguez. "Hey Jim, I need to take some vacation time. 2 weeks starting Monday if that's okay." "Sure thing, Clara. You've got plenty of days saved up. When's the last time you took a real vacation? 3 years, 4. "Something like that. I just need to get away for a while." "Take all the time you need. You've more than earned it." As soon as I hung up, I opened my laptop and started looking at flights. Mexico sounded perfect, warm, sunny, far away from Denver and family drama. I found a flight to Cancun, leaving Sunday morning, and booked it without even looking at the price. Then I spent an hour browsing resorts before booking a room at a beautiful place, right on the beach with an ocean view balcony. If my family wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I was going to show them exactly what they were missing. 3 days later, I was sitting on a plane to Cancun with my sunglasses on, and a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I hadn't told anyone where I was going, not my family obviously, but not even my close friends or coworkers. I just wanted to disappear for a while and figure out who I was when I wasn't trying so hard to earn love from people who might never give it. The resort was even more beautiful than the photos online. My room had a huge balcony overlooking the Caribbean, and I could hear the waves crashing from my bed. I spent the first day just lying by the pool reading a book and drinking fruity drinks with little umbrellas. For the first time in months, my mind felt quiet. On the second day, I started taking pictures. Not just random vacation snapshots, but really thoughtful compositions. The sunrise from my balcony with the ocean stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Me having breakfast alone but looking content and peaceful rather than lonely. A selfie of me in a sundress at dinner with palm trees and twinkling lights in the background. And then I got an idea. A petty, brilliant, completely justified idea. I posted the first photo me having breakfast on my balcony with a caption that was word for word what Rachel had written about Thanksgiving. Grateful for another perfect morning with our whole close-knit family. Nothing beats tradition. Blessed family, #gratitude. Within an hour, I had likes from cousins and family friends. People who probably didn't even read the caption carefully, just saw a pretty vacation photo and hit the heart button. But then my cousin Sarah from Fort Collins commented, "Wait, where is everyone? I only see you in the photo." I posted another picture the next day. Me at the beach during sunset looking relaxed and happy. Same caption. Grateful for another perfect day with our whole close-knit family. Nothing beats tradition. #blessed, #family, #gratitude. More likes. But now people were starting to pay attention to the disconnect between my words and the reality of the photos. My Aunt Linda from Grand Junction commented, "Clara, honey, are you by yourself? The caption says family, but I don't see anyone else." I kept posting every day a new beautiful photo of me doing something fun and relaxing, always with that same caption about my whole close-knit family. Me snorkeling in crystal clear water. Me at a fancy beachfront restaurant. Me getting a massage under a palapa. By day 4, my cousin Sarah had figured it out. She commented on my latest post, "Hey everyone, wasn't there a family photo from Rachel's Instagram on Thanksgiving where Clara wasn't in it? But now she's posting about her whole family being together in Mexico. Something doesn't add up here." That's when the real drama started. Other relatives began chiming in. My Uncle Bob from Colorado Springs commented, "What's going on with you Matthews kids? This is confusing." My Aunt Carol, who'd always been the family diplomat, wrote, "I'm confused." Rachel posted about the whole family being at her house for Thanksgiving, but Clara wasn't in those photos. Now Clara's posting about being with the whole family in Mexico. Can someone explain what's happening? I could practically feel my phone vibrating with activity as more and more extended family members started commenting and asking questions. The family drama was spilling out into public view, exactly what my parents had always tried to avoid at all costs. Then Mom jumped into the comments, and I could tell she was in full panic mode trying to do damage control. "Hi everyone." There was just a little misunderstanding about Thanksgiving plans. Clara got sick at the last minute and couldn't make it to Rachel's, so we had dinner without her. She's just being playful with her captions, you know how creative she is. But I wasn't done. I'd been saving something special for exactly this moment. I posted a new photo. Not of me having fun in Mexico, but the picture I'd taken on Thanksgiving Day, my dining room table perfectly set with Grandma O'Brien's china, the fall centerpiece, the empty chairs, all that beautiful untouched food. The image radiated loneliness and abandonment. You could feel the heartbreak just looking at it. The caption read, "The real story of my Thanksgiving dinner. I prepared this meal for the whole family that promised to come, but chose somewhere else instead. Grateful for the lesson about where I actually stand." Truth be told, now, family, that Thanksgiving 24. Within minutes, that post exploded. Comments started flooding in faster than I could read them. "Oh my God, Clara, I'm so sorry. What kind of family does this to someone? This is absolutely heartbreaking. You went to all that trouble and they just didn't show up. I've suspected for years that something was off with how Clara gets treated in this family. This just proves it." My Aunt Linda wrote, "I'm horrified. Clara, honey, I had no idea they were treating you this way." Then Rachel showed up in the comments and I could tell she was furious. "Clara, you're being completely inappropriate and dramatic about this. We never actually promised we'd come to your house. You're twisting the truth and making our family look terrible on social media. This is manipulative and unfair." So I posted one more thing, screenshots of our family WhatsApp group. The conversation where I'd invited everyone and they'd all enthusiastically agreed to come. The messages where they'd hearted my reminder post 2 days before Thanksgiving. The complete radio silence on Thanksgiving Day itself. The comments on that post were brutal, not for me, but for them. This is disgusting. They absolutely promised to come. How could you lie to her face like that? Clara has always been the sweetest person in your family and you guys treat her like garbage. A real family doesn't abandon someone like this. Clara deserves so much better. I'm done with all of you. Clara, you're welcome at our house anytime. My phone started ringing constantly. Mom, Dad, Rachel, Mike. They were all calling over and over, but I was lying on a beach in Cancun with a piña colada, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, and I had zero interest in talking to any of them. Instead, I turned off my phone and went swimming in the warm Caribbean water. I floated on my back, looking up at the stars starting to appear in the darkening sky, and realized I felt more at peace than I had in years. For once in my life, I wasn't trying to earn anyone's love or prove I belonged somewhere. I was just existing, and it felt incredible. When I finally turned my phone back on the next evening, I had 47 missed calls and countless text messages. Most of them were angry demands that I delete my posts and stop embarrassing the family. Rachel had sent me a long message calling me vindictive and manipulative for posting their private family conversations online. But mixed in with the angry messages were notes from extended family members and family friends. "Clara, I've always thought you were special, and this just confirms it. You're handling this with more grace than they deserve. Honey, some of us have suspected this was happening for years. We're proud of you for standing up for yourself. You're welcome in our home anytime. Family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up for you." I spent the rest of my vacation completely disconnected from the family drama. I kept their numbers blocked and stayed off social media entirely. Instead, I went ziplining through the jungle, took a cooking class where I learned to make proper mole, learned to paddleboard in the lagoon, and had the most relaxing week of my life. But more importantly, I started thinking about what I wanted my life to look like when I got home. For the first time, I wasn't planning around other people's expectations or trying to figure out how to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. When I flew back to Denver, I felt like a different person, stronger somehow, more sure of myself and what I deserved. I still had 3 days before I had to return to work, so I spent them doing normal things around the house. Laundry, grocery shopping, meal prep, catching up on Netflix. It felt good to have a routine that didn't involve performing for anyone's approval. On Wednesday afternoon, I was folding laundry and listening to a podcast when someone started pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw all of them, Mom, Dad, Rachel, and Mike. They looked angry and determined. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and opened the door. They pushed past me into my living room without even saying hello. "Clara, what the hell is wrong with you?" Rachel started yelling before I'd even closed the door. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this has been? Everyone in the family is talking about us like we're monsters." Mom was shaking her head like I was a teenager who'd been caught sneaking out. "You've completely humiliated us, Clara, posting our private family business online for everyone to see and judge. You need to delete everything and post an apology," Mike said in his engineer problem-solving voice. "Tell everyone it was all a misunderstanding, that you overreacted." Dad just stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me. The same expression he'd worn when I was 7 and had accidentally broken one of Mom's decorative plates while trying to help with dishes. I waited for them to finish their coordinated attack, then said calmly, "No, I'm not deleting anything, and I'm definitely not apologizing. You guys are the ones who should be apologizing to me." Mom stepped forward, and I could see her switching tactics. "Clara, sweetheart, if you don't fix this mess, we're going to have to distance ourselves from you. Is that really what you want?" I actually laughed, a real laugh, not a bitter one. "Distance yourselves from me. You already did that. You've been doing it my whole life." "That's not true," Dad said, but he didn't sound convincing even to himself. "Really?" I looked at each of them. "When was the last time you helped me with anything important? When was the last time you threw me a party or showed up for something that mattered to me? When was the last time you treated me like I was actually your daughter instead of some charity case you took in?" They all looked at each other, and I could tell they didn't have an answer, or rather, they had an answer, but it wasn't one they wanted to say out loud. "You know what?" I continued, feeling years of suppressed frustration finally finding its voice. "I'm done. I'm done trying to earn your love. I'm done begging for scraps of attention and pretending it's enough. I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel comfortable ignoring me." The room went completely silent. They stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "Clara," Mom said in a shaky voice, "you don't mean that." "I absolutely do. I'm done with all of you, starting right now." "You're being ridiculous," Rachel said, her voice getting higher. "You're acting like a spoiled brat who didn't get her way." "Get out," I said quietly. Mike tried a different approach. "Look, we can work this out. Maybe we can all sit down like adults and talk through this rationally. There's nothing to work out. You made it clear that I don't matter to you, so now you don't matter to me either. Please leave." They stood there for another minute, probably expecting me to back down like I always had before. But I didn't. I walked to the front door and held it open, waiting. Finally, they left. Rachel was the last one out, and she turned around to deliver one final shot. "You're going to regret this, Clara. We're your family. We're all you have." But as I closed the door behind them, I realized she was wrong. They weren't all I had. I had myself. I had friends who actually cared about me. I had a career I'd built on my own. I had a house I'd bought with my own money. I had Grandma O'Brien's china and her recipes and her stories about starting over in a new country with nothing but determination. I had everything I needed to build a life that didn't require their approval. Over the next few days, my parents tried reaching out through different channels. Mom called from various numbers, leaving voicemails about working through our differences and not letting pride tear our family apart. Dad sent emails with subject lines like, "Let's talk," and "Family first." They even had Jennifer call me, thinking I might be more receptive to hearing from Mike's wife. I ignored every attempt. I'd said what I needed to say, and I was done explaining myself. Rachel tried a different approach, texting me from a friend's phone. "You're being incredibly selfish and childish. Mom is crying every day because of what you've done. Is your ego really worth destroying our family?" I blocked that number too. The irony of Rachel accusing me of destroying our family when they'd been systematically excluding me for years wasn't lost on me. 2 months later, it was my birthday. Instead of waiting for the obligatory dinner invitation that might or might not come, I threw myself a party. I invited my real friends, co-workers from the agency, people from my yoga class, neighbors. I'd gotten to know my friend Kim from college, who'd always said my family was weird about me. We had an amazing time. People brought thoughtful gifts, we laughed until our faces hurt, and several friends told me how much happier I seemed lately. Kim pulled me aside and said, "I don't know what you did, but you're glowing. You look like yourself for the first time in years." That evening, after everyone had left, and I was cleaning up, a delivery driver showed up with packages from my parents and siblings. Expensive stuff, a KitchenAid mixer from Mom and Dad, designer jewelry from Rachel, some high-end tech gadget from Mike. Obvious guilt gifts, trying to buy their way back into my good graces. I refused to accept the packages and told the driver to return them to the senders. It's been 8 months now since that Thanksgiving. 8 months since I stopped trying to force myself into a family that never made room for me. And you know what? I'm happier than I've ever been. I started going to therapy. Story 2. My mother claimed that the birthday cake was okay after I had eaten it. My girl froze in agony. "She's acting," my mother sneered. "Intolerant foods do not exist." My father also added. I remained silent. All we did was laugh. They regretted everything when I called them the following day. When we entered, the home smelled like store-bought candles and vanilla. There were balloons bouncing at the ceiling. Was the music so tinny when the plates clattered on the kitchen counter kind of happy? It always seems like it's an attempt to hide stress. I was holding Lily's hand a bit too tightly. She gave a single covert squeeze in return. The cake, iced pink with tiny rosettes piped around the borders, was already on the table. As if everything had been prepared for an Instagram picture shoot, there was a perfect 7 candles sitting in the middle, made at home. With a smile that stopped short of her eyes, my mother exclaimed cheerfully while straightening her apron. I grinned and nodded. Because you're meant to do that. Because words aren't always enough to win wars. Paper plates, courteous nods, and phony smiles are used to combat them. At first, I remained silent about the cake, but I questioned my mom in a casual way while she cut the portions. "Isn't it gluten-free?" She chuckled as if I had said something cute. "It is, of course. I made it myself." She stated it with such assurance and outrage that I almost felt ashamed to have asked. Lily gazed up at me with big, trusting eyes. I gave a nod. "You have a birthday, my love. It's all right." She chose out her own glittering pink outfit that morning, since she said it made her feel like a princess, and she grabbed her slice and sat down carefully, fixing the hem. She waited patiently for everyone else to be served, as her glittering shoes kicked a bit beneath the table. She silently rehearsed the words, "Thank you." I heard her. I wish I could tell you that something didn't feel right. I wish I could claim that as the knife dipped into the cake, time slowed down, or that my blood ran cold when I saw the icing. However, since it normally happens that way, it seemed natural. The worst betrayals don't have dramatic music and thunderclaps. They are tied with a bow and wrapped in tissue paper. We sang. In a single gentle puff, Lily extinguished her candle. I could see her eyelashes quivering as she closed her eyes so tightly. She wished. I had no idea what that was. Perhaps something easy. Perhaps it has to do with the fact that this year is better than previous. When she took her first mouthful, she grinned. A genuine smile, not forced or courteous. a little smile of relief and happiness, as if the day might turn out okay. After 20 minutes, she muttered that she wanted to go to the restroom and pulled on my sleeve. She had a pallid face. Her little hands trembled. Past the laughing, past the scent of lasagna, past the melting wax candles into icing, I escorted her down the hall. She attempted to go alone, but halfway there she simply stopped, put a hand on her tummy, and gave me a wide-eyed, glazed look. Her knowledge of gluten intolerance is limited. I'll give you a simple explanation. Celiac illness is not something Lily has. Not even one piece of bread will kill her. However, she does have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. It's also true. It is true that a single taste of the incorrect item might result in hours of suffering. Sometimes she has days of pain bloating that makes her feel as though her skin is too tight, nausea and cramps that feel like someone is tying knots inside of her. Headaches that make moving painful. Despite just being 7, she has already mastered the art of concealing it after seeing the jokes on the internet. She was once softly informed that she was being difficult, and she heard the grown-ups chuckle about fictitious allergies. Being different bothers her. Being the gluten kid bothers her. She tends to keep the suffering to herself. It's already terrible when Lily claims that asking for aid hurts. We arrived at the restroom. I gently moved her dress out of the way so she wouldn't sit on it, and assisted her in sitting on the floor. She began to scream and gripped her tummy, first quiet, then more forceful, as if she were apologizing with each breath. "Mommy, my stomach hurts," she said. "It aches a lot." I assured her that was all right and brushed her hair back from her face. Assured her that she wasn't acting improperly. I assured her that I would always have her. How long we stayed there is unknown to me. Long enough for the noise from the party to become distant and muted. Long enough even if the agony didn't for her breathing to slow. Lily was clinging to my side, her face crimson and splotchy when we eventually emerged. Already there was a lot of laughter. "She's acting." Like she was launching a parade, my mother cried out from the kitchen while brandishing her wine glass. Today's kids are very sensitive. When my dad stated that 2 of the cousins burst out laughing. My sister, apologies. "Probably just wants attention," Kara remarked with a sly smile. After all, it's her birthday. I could feel Lily's flinching through my own bones. I pulled her closer to me. I remained silent. That's when I noticed it, so not yet. By the counter is the garbage can. Half of the lid was open. The crumpled edge of a pastry box peeked out just enough for me to see. Not a cake that was baked by hand. Not even close. I stepped forward. Nobody took attention. They were too preoccupied with laughing, putting food on plates, and throwing napkins. I understood that the local supermarket where the package came from didn't offer gluten-free cakes unless you placed a special order weeks in advance. Even so, they put a large gold sticker on it. Free of gluten. This container, no label, no sticker. It was just your average flour-filled bakery cake. At the time, I sensed it. Not anger, not quite yet. Something colder, something more substantial. I took a picture of the box and the cake that was half eaten on the table using my phone. I took a picture of the dumb sign that stated, "Homemade with love wasn't love," that Mom had affixed to the counter. It was treachery. Pink frosted. I lowered myself to Lily's level. He was making every effort to keep from crying again. I'm making every effort to avoid ruining anything. "There was nothing wrong with you," I muttered. She gave a nod. A little wretched motion. "We're heading home, my love." I spoke more loudly now so that everyone could hear me. Mom scowled. My dad opened his lips to say something, then changed his mind. I thought Kara might have sprained something because of how hard she rolled her eyes. We didn't hold back until someone intervened. We didn't wait for unfulfilled apologies. We left. With my own rage nestled securely behind my ribs like a second spine, I was bearing the burden of my daughter's suffering. I wish I could say that we were chased by someone. The reality is that I wish I could tell you that someone phoned. They resumed their meal after laughing, and I came to a realization midway between the front entrance and the restroom. Never again was I going to allow them to laugh. Not at me and not at Lily. Never. Realizing your parents don't care about you doesn't happen overnight. Like water beneath a door, it infiltrates. It's first so little that you believe it's a figment of your imagination. Perhaps they were worn out. You could have been overly dramatic. Perhaps you would be easy to adore if you just put forth more effort. That's how I was raised to think. 1,000 little wounds. Each one is sufficiently little to be explained. Until the moment you become aware that you are bleeding out. When I was Lily's age, I also experienced similar migraines. Negative ones. The type that caused the lights behind my eyes to burn and the world to tilt sideways. I would place a cool towel over my forehead and snuggle up on the couch. Aim to keep your breathing quiet. Every time I had a little headache, my mother would roll her eyes, sigh deeply, and remark something like, "It must be nice to take a vacation again." My father referred to it as playing sick. Said I needed to become more resilient, said that I was overly sensitive, as if it were a weakness, as if I couldn't get the stain off. The worst thing, I did believe them at times. I stopped telling them when something hurt by the time I was a teenager. Pains in the stomach and twisted ankles. Silently, I would sit in my room and limp. For what purpose was it? Weakness was pain. It was embarrassing to be weak. What your family values and ours is something you learn early on. It wasn't goodwill. It was perseverance, regardless of the expense. Act as though everything is all right. I made a self-promise not to do that to Lily when she was diagnosed with gluten sensitivity last year. I vowed to pay attention, trust her when she tells you that she hurts, allow for her suffering, even if it was more difficult, even if it caused awkwardness, particularly at that time. And I mostly fulfilled that commitment. However, it's ironic that when you're standing in the center of the battlefield, you grew up on old habits tend to die harder. It's amusing how simple it is to fall for the delusion that perhaps things will be different this time. They could have changed. They may, in a sense, come to her aid. For me, they never arrived. They were the same. I simply become more adept at deceiving myself. It was evident in the small details that preceded the celebration. When I reminded my mom about Lily's diet, she snorted. When I suggested packing safe snacks, my sister Kara rolled her eyes. The way Dad whispered to himself that nowadays everyone has allergies to everything. The way they made jokes about unexpected gluten bombs during the appetizers last Christmas. I dismissed it with a giggle and assured myself it was innocuous. They were simply being outdated, I reminded myself. A lot of falsehoods that I told myself. I will tell you that pride is the reason someone would fabricate a gluten-free cake. It's strength. It's the silent, resentful denial that anything that is not part of their experience is genuine. They didn't just question Lily's suffering. The notion that her needs required them to do anything at all was something they detested. Even a minor one like changing the flour, particularly anything that tiny as little things are inexpensive. This implies that you are not incapable of doing things if you choose not to. The reason is because you won't. I'm not implying that they decided to harm Lily today when they woke up that morning. That is not the worst of it. After we left the party, they didn't give her any thought. Lily and I sat in her room. Her glittery sneakers were left in the hallway, as if they couldn't stand to see the rest of the day, and she was snuggled up in bed with her knees tucked under her chin. I got her a heating pad, sat on the floor next to her bed, and gently tucked her in. "Do you believe I made a mistake?" she muttered. My throat constricted. "No," I responded, "sweetheart. Everything you did was correct." She gave me a nod, but I could tell she wasn't really convinced. Not quite yet. Not for a while, perhaps. Children are said to be resilient. I believe they mistake quiet with resilience. They believe that a child is okay if they continue to smile, show up and laugh when appropriate. Sometimes it simply indicates that they have learned. If they're not, it makes no difference. That evening, I brewed myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table in the dark, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator and the even fainter sound of Lily's breathing coming from the hallway. I reflected on all the times my parents had thrown me out. They made jokes about me all the time. Every birthday where the cake wasn't perfect, the presents were a little too harsh, and the smiles were a little too piercing. I considered how year after year I made myself smaller in an effort to be more lovable. And my thoughts turned to Lily, her glittering gown, her cautious little thank you, and her courageous smile, despite her stomach churning. She was worthy of better. The following morning, when my mother began sending me texts, "I hope your condition has improved. We should avoid making a huge deal out of nothing. She is a strong young woman. She will recover." I didn't answer. When Care chimed in, "Not yet. You're very dramatic. There was only one piece of cake. We didn't actually poison her." For the first time in a long time, I wasn't confused, so I didn't answer either. I had no doubts about myself. I wasn't considering the possibility that I was being overly sensitive. I saw them clearly for the first time, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. I had no intention of arguing. I had no intention of begging. I had no intention of explaining basic human decency to those who had ridiculed it all their lives. Without regrets, without remorse, without wasting any more time acting as though they deserved us, I was going to defend my daughter. You don't just up and leave people like that. You finally get pushed hard enough to see the cliff you've been standing on all along, so you leave. I sat at the kitchen table and gazed at my phone after we arrived home. The pictures were all there, glowing coldly in the light. The bakery box in the trash, the half-eaten cake with no gluten-free label. The texts where I warned them, baked them, made myself small and reasonable and polite. The jokes they made afterward about how a little flour never killed anybody. Proof. Not enough to undo what they did, but enough to make sure they didn't get to pretend it didn't happen. I told Mark I was going to call the police. He didn't argue. He just said I'll stay with Lily and went back to sitting beside her, brushing her hair back. With that steady patience I used to think only saints had. I called the non-emergency line, told the woman on the other end that I needed to report intentional harm to a child, explained everything. The allergy warnings, the medical diagnosis, the documented proof that they knew and served the cake anyway. They transferred me to a family services officer. He listened carefully, interrupting only to ask clear-pointed questions. Was Lily medically diagnosed? Yes. Official paperwork from her pediatrician. Did the family know? Yes. Texts and conversations proving it was their proof. They deliberately ignored it. Yes. Photos, screenshots, voicemails. He was quiet for a second after I finished. Finally, he said, "We can file a report too. Puts the incident on record. It's not a criminal charge. Not unless further investigation finds clear evidence of reckless harm or a pattern. But it will stay documented. It will be there if you ever need it again." He didn't say it like it was a small thing. He said it like it was a weapon. And for once in my life, I didn't put it down. I sent him everything. Every photo, every text, every scrap of proof. They never thought I'd be brave enough to collect. When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like someone who had stopped stitching up wounds just to bleed slower. I was done bleeding for them. The first text came 10 minutes later. He called the police over a birthday party. "You need to stop before you ruin everything. Families have disagreements. Normal people don't call the cops over Kate and Dad. Predictably worse. Hope you're ready to raise that girl alone when Mark gets tired of your drama." There was the knife slid in where they always knew it would hurt. Not just attacking me, attacking Lily's home, attacking my marriage because they didn't just want me obedient, they wanted me afraid. I didn't reply, not because I didn't have words, because no words would make them hear what they refused to see. I sat down and started making a list instead. Not a list of opponents, a collection of folks who still knew how to love people. Lily deserved to be surrounded by people who would never laugh at her anguish. The second birthday celebration wasn't going to be extravagant. It wasn't going to have matching balloon arches or Instagram flawless dessert tables. It was supposed to have something better. It was going to have safety. I texted Mia first, Lily's godmother, and within minutes, she was sharing images of picnic shelters available for rent. I emailed Lily's teacher next, who had previously sat with her over lunch when a replacement delivered the wrong snack and Lily got sick. I texted 3 of Lily's friends' parents, the ones who always double-checked labels without being asked. We had a strategy, a guest list, and a bakery order for gluten-free cupcakes in less than an hour. Personalized, frosted with tiny silver stars. My family members weren't invited. Not one. I also didn't feel bad about it, not even a moment, because you don't invite matchlighters to watch you frantically extinguish the fire. The phone called again that night. I let the voicemail go. She spoke in a tight, angry voice that was cloaked in phony sweetness. "Think about what you're doing, Erin, honey. Lily needs her family. She requires a community. Don't allow your pride prevent her from having a loving environment as she grows up." The words fizzed in the air like acid as I sat there listening. However, they had referred to it as ridiculing a sick youngster. They had called love. Telling her lies. Love. Love. Love isn't about denying the reality of someone else's suffering. Love doesn't chuckle when the person you are meant to protect is sobbing while curled up on the restroom floor. A show is not what love is. It's a pledge. Not to quarrel, but I considered phoning her back. Simply said very gently, "You wouldn't have poisoned her to make a point if you truly loved her." But then I came to a better realization. Even that much vitality wasn't theirs. Instead, I blocked the number. "Kara, I'm blocked." Blocked. I had decided to stop lecturing mature folks about fundamental decency. I had no intention of writing essays pleading for the necessities of life. They were aware. They simply didn't give a damn. The police officer confirmed that the complaint had been made by email the next morning. No criminal accusations. It was there but not yet. Recorded. Unquestionably a little. I printed it off, placed it in a folder, and slipped it inside the lockbox containing Lily's first hospital wristband birth certificates and vaccination records. Evidence that we were important. Evidence that someone had paid attention. Evidence that the harm they caused this time would not just disappear. Lily remained silent over supper. We ate in the quiet clatter of forks as the dishwasher ran and Mark prepared her favorite gluten-free pasta spaghetti. Lily then got onto my lap and put her cheek against my chest. "Is wanting a different family a negative thing?" she inquired. I gave her head a kiss on top. "No," I responded, "sweetheart. It's courageous." That evening we completed the preparations for her second birthday. No major surprises, no speeches, only cupcakes, bubbles, a park with Lily glowing fiercely and laughing without any rough edges. Free. That's right, the manner in which she was due. The saddest aspect in your opinion is realizing that your family would sooner harm your child than own up to their mistakes. However, it isn't. The hardest part is what occurs when they attempt to rewrite, twist, and claw their way back into your life, as if they have a right to do so. The fallout was delayed, but the betrayal was harsh, rotten, foolish. There was stillness at first, a few of days, no texts, no calls, enough time for me to nearly drop my defenses. Then Kara sent the email. Subject line: "I've pardoned your outburst for Lily's sake. I believe it's time for us all to move on. Let's move on from this. Lily's family should pardon her," as if she hadn't been the one to laugh as my daughter broken down in tears on the restroom floor, as if I should be the one to apologize. I didn't answer. Not because I was at a loss for words, because on the day I filed that report, I had already said all I needed to say. Mom then sent flowers, including a large bouquet of white roses and pink lilies. "We love you both," it said on the card. A lifetime of love shouldn't be destroyed by a single miscommunication. I looked at the flowers for a while before throwing them in the garbage. Because here's the thing, love lasts a lifetime. One cake wouldn't be enough to ruin it if it were real. If a single moment of truth can erase it, there was never any love. After that, they got more intense. Voicemails, emails, and phone calls from blocked numbers from family members I hadn't spoken to in years. My aunt called to inform me that my mother was inconsolable. I received a Facebook message from my cousin inquiring about my mental health. Kara made a vague but pointed online post about people who use children against their families in order to get attention. They attempted to control the story because they couldn't control me. After that, they went too far. It was a Tuesday. I received a call from Lily's school about 230 hours before to pick up. Despite her composure, I could detect the stress in the front desk secretary's voice. "Hello, Mrs. Palmer. I simply wanted to make sure. Did you arrange for Lily to be picked up today by her grandparents? They claimed to have your consent when they arrived." My heart stopped beating. "No!" I exclaimed, getting up so quickly that I toppled my chair. "Not at all. Don't let them have her." I was already behind the woman. She has remained in the classroom. They have yet to see her. However, I advise getting in touch with the authorities and will be recording this. Already I was calling the cops. I want to be clear. They did more than simply step over the line. They broke it. They attempted to abduct her when they arrived at her school, attempted to avoid me, as if they were still entitled to her. Any rights, any trust. I was already at the school when the police got there. Mark too. The moment I phoned, he had left work. Lily was secure, safe but taken. She had failed to see them, and I'm grateful for it. Our statements were taken by the officer. To verify the timing, I got in touch with the school. Calmly and professionally informed me that a formal no-contact order will now be put on file as a result of this. Not only a report, a formal request for civil protection, not a prison, a line they couldn't cross again without repercussions but not handcuffs. They would also have to draw the boundaries by living with someone else for once. 2 days later, they made another attempt and left a box of toys and old family pictures on our porch. Lily located it, opened the lid, and gazed at a photo of herself sitting in my mother's lap as a toddler. If I don't feel like loving them anymore, do I still have to? She wondered. No, baby, I murmured as I sat next to her. After giving a nod, she shut the box, didn't inquire again. That weekend was the second birthday celebration. It was a sunny, chilly day. Children were racing over the grass, laughing over cupcakes and brandishing bubble wands that glistened in the sunlight like stars. Lily put on her glittery gown once more, the identical one, that party's one. However, she didn't flinch when she wore it this time. She performed a dance. She chuckled. When someone handed her food, she didn't flinch or try to hide because everything had been meticulously inspected twice and prepared with love rather than ego. She was quite safe. Later, a couple other parents inquired in a low voice if everything was well. They had heard gossip, nothing tangible. A family conflict had been brought up by someone's mother. Another person overheard me calling the police on my own. Mom. I didn't elaborate, did not defend, just stated that we had to act in Lily's best interests. They also gave a nod. Because it is understood by those who are important. A letter served as the last escalation. I typed. Mailed. I recognized my dad's wording, but there was no return address. This is the decision you made. We will never forget it. It is our hope that Lily will come to understand who truly loved her. Families never die. That cannot be altered. I didn't answer. I refrained from crying. The letter was not even kept by me. I tore it up, brewed some tea, and watched my kid and her father construct a pillow fort in the living room. And I came to a straightforward realization. Families are temporary. Not the type that comes naturally, just the type you want. I made an official request to the daycare and school the next morning. Except for Mark and me, no pickups are permitted. There are no exceptions, no modifications without ID and in-person confirmation. I strengthened all the locks and upgraded the emergency connections. Not because I was scared, but rather because I was tired of allowing individuals to evade my goodwill. They are free to maintain their version of events. They may portray me as vengeful, theatrical, and unappreciative. However, what is the reality? They tossed it away, despite my best efforts. Cake one bite at a time, one slight, just one chuckle, one willful treachery. The bridge wasn't burned by me. They buried it beneath. They always claimed that suffering wasn't genuine. They can now reside on the opposite side of it. Perhaps you believe that I overreacted. Perhaps you believe that I ought to have let it go. That the cake was all that it was. Only one bad moment. It was only a miscommunication. You might be correct. Or perhaps you've never had to face your child and explain why others who claim to love her continue to harm her. I wasn't expecting trouble when I started this. I had no desire to sever relations, submit reports, or alter school regulations. However, you eventually give up on someone changing if they repeatedly demonstrate that their pride comes above the safety of your child. Instead, you transform. Even if it means losing the last remnant of your family, You will defend your child. However, I'd want to hear from you. Do you believe I overreached myself? How would you have responded to it? If you liked the tale, please subscribe for more and leave a comment.